Hey everybody, welcome to Q&A video number 13. This is actually being recorded on Friday the 13th. Kind of creepy. But anyway, make sure to keep asking questions. Doesn't matter what they're about. They can be about anything. And I do need tons of questions for Q&A 14, so make sure to keep asking them. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started with an important question from Lamafani 2. Sorry about that. What's your opinion on the SOPA bill? SOPA stands for Stop Online Piracy Act. It's one of two pieces of legislation going through Congress right now. And if you think that, oh, I'm not American, it doesn't affect me, guess what? It does affect you, so listen up. SOPA stands for Stop Online Piracy Act. There is a piece of sister legislation called PIPA, or Protect IP Act. That's also an acronym. It's a really long acronym. I'm not going to read it out for you. What these two bills boil down to, they say they're to stop piracy, but in reality, they're just censorship of the internet. We are talking China-style DNS blocking, which would basically redirect you whenever you enter a website address that's not on the approved list. It would either redirect you or just not let you go there at all. This thing is extremely easy to circumvent, so they probably wouldn't use that. Instead, what they would use is the provision that allows them to cut off ad revenue to these sites and demand that ISPs take them down and stuff like that. This is horrible. Not because it's censorship, but because of the sheer lack of oversight there is. There is no due process here, at all. You are blatantly violating the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which is the right to free speech, among other things, of course. And there are websites on these so-called rogue sites lists that include stuff like eBay and Craigslist and personal blogs and stuff like that. They would be censoring things. It's that simple. And you could basically just kiss fair use goodbye. There would probably be no more Let's Plays. I would have to stop doing that, most likely. And basically, if this bill actually gets through Congress and gets signed into law, I'm going to have to quit YouTube. It's that simple. Just because they could go berserk on me. Anyway, this is a whole mess. I'm going to link you to Total Biscuit's video on SOPA. It's really, really good, so if you want to be more informed on it, I kind of do a bad job of explaining it, because I don't really have a legal background. It's a little difficult for me to sift through the language and such. But I know what ramifications these bills could have. So I'm going to redirect you to his video, and he also cites an article that he puts in his link, in his video description box. So make sure you watch that video if you care at all about a free internet, because if you don't, then guess what? It'll probably happen, and you will no longer have free internet. And we're talking like the entire internet could shut down. It's a horrible, horrible thing. Anyway, let's go from that on to ChineseTimLi asking, why do you hate PlayStation? Let's put it this way. I don't hate the system itself. The system that actually plays the games is not that bad. What I hate is the controller, which legitimately hurts my hands to use. I don't know how they managed to screw it up badly enough that it actually hurts my hands to hold that controller, but they managed to do it. Thus, I just can't play PlayStation. No matter how many games are on it that I might actually want to play. Like, I don't know, Metal Gear Solid or the Tales series and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a pain. That's the only reason I don't do PlayStation stuff. I don't even have one anyway. Every time I played it, it was at a buddy's house, and it always hurt my hands, so I just said screw it, I'm not going to bother with this anymore. Next two questions are from WatchOutBR. First one is, have you ever considered doing video game guides? Not like a giant guide or walkthrough, but small guides that you would do to teach your viewers. I already do that, kinda. I have little tutorials and game guides, and, well, not necessarily game guides, but just little guides and tutorials here and there. The thing is, people never ask me if I can do a video on how to do something in a game, so I never do them. It's not a matter of, have I considered it? Sure, I have. I just don't know what you guys want to know. So I kind of assume that everybody knows what I'm talking about or how to do something or something like that. So you guys have to actually put out requests for these sort of things to actually get them, on my channel. But of course I've considered doing them. And the second question is, what would be the best old cRPG, we're talking Western role-playing games here, to get into them? Basically, what would be the best kind of first one to play? No conditions here, just my opinion. Personally, I think the one that was the most accessible for me was actually Neverwinter Nights. And this was before I was really into D&D. I jumped into Neverwinter Nights, and it explains things really well. There's a lot done behind the scenes, so you don't have to worry about it. Baldur's Gate and Icewind Dale are the same way. It's just they're a little bit more hardcore, so you need to pay more attention to what you're doing. Neverwinter Nights is pretty forgiving, so you can jump into that pretty easily and know how everything works. There's a lot of recommended stuff you can do, so it actually can fill out things for you, and so you can kind of learn by doing. So I'd say Neverwinter Nights is probably the best cRPG to really play to get into the whole genre. Because from there you can just go into all sorts of things. You can go into Ultima. You can go into, especially Baldur's Gate and the old D&D titles. The thing is, you're talking about rule sets that evolve over time. Like Neverwinter Nights was 3rd edition. Temple of Elemental Evil, for instance, was 3.5. They haven't done a 4th edition yet, luckily, because that edition sucks. But most of the D&D games from like the 90s and 80s were actually 2nd edition, which is AD&D, Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. And so there are little nuances between the editions. The thing is, once you play through one, you know how to play the others. Now, granted, there are things like Might and Magic and, Ishar, where it's the first-person kind of perspective, but it's party-based, and those are a little harder to get into. For those, I would probably recommend... I can tell you what not to play. Don't play Ishar. But probably the Might and Magic series is probably pretty easy to get into if you know how to play a role-playing game already. They're pretty easy to adapt to, I should say. Whereas with most other party-based role-playing games that are in that first-person kind of perspective, they're actually kind of hard to get into, and a lot of action-based stuff goes on in there. You have to be really careful with what you're doing and everything. So yeah, Neverwinter Nights, if you're just looking to get into cRPGs in general, that was kind of one of the last ones. And if you go from there, go into Baldur's Gate, because that's a lot. That does a lot of explaining too. From there, you can go into the more hardcore stuff, Icewind Dale, Planescape Torment, that sort of thing. And Ultima's kind of really hardcore, so you have to really be careful with those. But yeah. Anyway, next question is from King Pluto Zhao 1. What are your thoughts on the arrow to the knee joke, and how long do you think it'll last on YouTube? Oh, I hate that joke. Because it's so overused. It's not even funny. It's just pretty much all the guards have the same little things. Did somebody take your sweet roll? Did you see those warriors from Hammerfell? They've got curved swords. Curved swords! Oh. And then the arrow to the knee joke is just stupid. I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee. How is that supposed to be funny? I mean, really. You're talking about something that they just put random applications of. I used to be a game reviewer, then I took an arrow in the knee. It's like, what? Oh, I hope that goes away soon, but it'll probably last quite a while. It's starting to kind of dissipate, which is nice, but it'll probably last quite a while, and there's probably somebody just posting it somewhere for quite a while, but eventually it'll just die out. Maybe give it a year or two, something like that, until it probably really dies out. Next one is from Whiteblade9999. What do you think of recent attempts to revive the so-called classic role-playing game? Do you think it's like a tacky gimmick to market towards nostalgia, or, in those recent attempts? Examples include stuff like Age of Decadence, if it ever comes out, Eschalon Book 1 and 2, and Legend of Grimrock. I think it's a great idea, actually, because those games never really got their due. They kind of just died out as soon as the 90s hit their 3D era. Partly because they just couldn't adapt very well, and now I think with a lot of the love and affection that the indie market is kind of giving these things, despite not having top-notch visuals or something, they might actually pull through. They might actually become popular again, which is really nice, because I miss that style of role-playing game. I didn't get into it back then. I didn't really get into role-playing games until basically the late 90s, early 2000s, so I hadn't played the first-person party-based role-playing games back then. I had played stuff like Baldur's Gate at isometric perspective, and they did that with Age of Decadence and Echelon, but it's nice that we're getting more of those kind of old-school role-playing games. And I mean, Spiderweb Software has been doing them for a long time. They go back to the early 90s as well, and they're still putting out classic role-playing games, and if you like those kind of games, you should really check them out. They're great. But it's nice that we're having those again. I think there's some room for improvement. There's some room to kind of just destroy their own games and stuff like that. And so it's kind of easy to fall short. But the ones I've played, the demos and such like that, they're pretty solid so far, and I'm actually curious to see how this goes. Next one is from CubeFace21. Do you have Pac-Man Fever? Are you going out of your mind? Definitely, man. Oh, that song is bad. It's bad. It's really bad. One of those kind of cheap cash-in things. But yeah. Next one's from Dylan Trueblood, 1996. What do you think about the new Zelda Skyward Sword? I only put this in here because I'm not going to review it because I don't have a Nintendo Wii. But I've heard nothing good about that game. Literally nothing good about it. Particularly Fee. I calculate a 98% probability that... She's like 10 billion times more annoying than Navi, and then they screwed up the timeline, and... Zelda just seems to keep getting worse, actually. Phantom Hourglass, oh, that was bad. Spirit Tracks was kind of too bad. Come to think of it, the latest game that in the Zelda series that I actually liked was Twilight Sword, and that was the GameCube version. The Wii version's terrible. I played it. It's bad. But apart from that, Skyward Sword, I'm not feeling it. It looks bad. Next one, I've gotten a lot lately, but for some reason haven't gotten it before. From Lednar87, any chance you'll change your video format to 16:9? If you don't know what that is, that's widescreen format. I don't have a widescreen monitor. In case you didn't notice, in my video description boxes, I tend to put all settings maxed at 1024 by 768 resolution. That's a 4:3 ratio. It's native resolution for my monitor. I can't do widescreen. It just messes up, and so I'm not going to do it. And if you think, oh, well, 720p, that's also widescreen. So, yeah, sorry. But not until I upgrade my whole system, including the monitor, which will not happen for some time. And then the last one is from Dragon Eye Studios. Are you excited about 2K's XCOM Enemy Unknown remake? It looks to be faithful to the original. I am very worried about this. If you've watched me for a while, you know I did a rant on the first-person shooter one, which has absolutely nothing to do with XCOM. Enemy Unknown is in development by Firaxis, the guys behind Civilization. And I have hope for it, because these are guys who worked at Microprose back in the 90s, and so they probably had some contact with the team. I know basically nobody at Firaxis actually worked on XCOM, but they probably worked with these people and kind of can see what was going on and such like that. And I hear that they're basically being made to play the original XCOM, which was UFO Enemy Unknown, or XCOM UFO Defense, depending on what version you have. And so I have hope for it, but they seem to be removing a few things, like time units, which was actually kind of a cool thing. And so I think they could go either way. It could either be quite good, or it could suck. And, I mean, Firaxis has already proven that they can screw up their own license, and they did it with Civ 4. So, I don't know. I'm kind of mixed on it. Hopefully it'll be good, but I'm not keeping my expectations high, just so I don't get horribly disappointed by it. Anyway, that's Q&A 13, everybody. Hope you found it informative or insightful or whatever. So I'll catch you guys in later videos.